Have you ever wondered why certain stories echo across every culture on Earth? A lost child, alone in the wilderness, somehow found not by rescuers, but by a wild animal who chooses not to harm them? It sounds like myth. And in many cases it is. But scattered through history are real, documented moments of animals behaving in ways that defy the instincts we assume they have. To understand why, we have to ask a stranger question first. What does a predator actually see when it looks at a human child? Most people imagine nature as ruthless, kill or be killed, and in many ways that's true. But predators don't attack everything smaller than themselves. They attack what registers as prey, and prey recognition isn't random. It's built on movement, sound, smell, and behavior patterns that a young child, oddly enough, often doesn't produce. A lost child, frightened and still, doesn't run, doesn't scream in the rhythmic bursts of a fleeing animal, doesn't smell like anything familiar on a predator's mental checklist. In many cases, stillness itself may be part of what keeps a child unnoticed, not protected, just unnoticed. Survival sometimes comes from not looking like something worth chasing, but there's a deeper layer to this. Ethologists have identified something called the baby schema, a hardwired response to big eyes, a rounded head, a small body, shapes that trigger caretaking instincts rather than aggression. It's well documented in humans, and to a lesser extent in some other social animals toward their own young. Whether this same wiring ever softens a true predator's response toward an unfamiliar species is far less certain. Most researchers remain skeptical, since plenty of predators show no hesitation at all toward prey with those same juvenile features. Still, human children, especially very young ones, don't fit neatly into the sensory categories a predator relies on. Not because the animal understands what a human is, but because certain shapes and signals sit outside a predator's ordinary hunting cues. This doesn't mean wild animals see children as their own. It means, in rare cases, the signals a child gives off don't fit neatly into threat or food, and when an animal's instincts don't know what something is, hesitation is often safer than attack. Now here's where the story gets more complicated and more honest. Many of the most famous tales of animals adopting lost children are not verified fact. Stories of children raised by wolves have circulated for centuries, from ancient founding myths to reports from the 1800s and 1900s. But when researchers have investigated these cases closely, the evidence is almost always incomplete, exaggerated, or impossible to confirm. Some cases were later linked to children with undiagnosed developmental conditions, misunderstood by observers at the time. Others were likely embellished retellings, shaped more by cultural imagination than by fact. So why do these stories persist, generation after generation, across cultures who never had contact with each other? Because they tap into something deeply human, the fear of abandonment and the hope that even in nature's indifference, there is mercy. Psychologists who study storytelling point to this pattern again and again. Humans are drawn to narratives where danger and rescue exist in the same breath. A wild animal sparing a child isn't just a nice story. It represents a kind of cosmic reassurance. That even in a world without guarantees, something might still choose to protect the smallest and most defenseless among us. But let's step back into what is actually documented, because reality, without exaggeration, is still remarkable. There are verified accounts of dogs, domesticated, not wild, locating lost children in wilderness settings, sometimes staying beside them for hours until rescuers arrived. This isn't mysticism. Dogs share tens of thousands of years of coevolution with humans. Their instincts toward social bonding, protection, and reading human emotional states were shaped alongside us, generation after generation, through selective breeding and companionship. Wild animals are a different story. True predators avoiding a child isn't usually protection. It's often simply a lack of provocation. Many wild animals prefer to avoid humans altogether, associating our species correctly with danger. Human hunting, habitat disruption, and centuries of conflict have taught many wild species, consciously or not, that humans are best avoided, not engaged. So in the rare, real cases where animals have not harmed a lost or wandering child, scientists point not to compassion, but to a mix of factors. Low prey recognition cues, general avoidance behavior toward humans, and sometimes simple chance. Nature is vast, and children do occasionally survive encounters that instinct alone would predict should end differently. That doesn't mean an animal understood mercy. It may only mean the encounter never crossed the invisible thresholds that trigger predatory behavior in the first place. And yet, Something still lingers in these stories that pure biology doesn't fully explain, because even scientists who study animal behavior for a living often admit instincts aren't perfect switches. They're patterns shaped by millions of years of evolution, and patterns can misfire, hesitate, or respond in unexpected ways when faced with something genuinely unfamiliar. A lost child in the wild is, in a sense, an anomaly. Not prey behaving like prey, not a threat behaving like a threat. Something in between, something instinct doesn't have a clean answer for. Maybe that hesitation, that biological uncertainty, is the closest thing nature offers to grace. Not kindness in the way we understand it. Not choice, not morality, not love. But a gap, a rare and fragile gap where instinct falters just long enough for something extraordinary to happen instead of something tragic. We call these stories miracles because we want to believe nature notices us. Science suggests something quieter and, in its own way, just as astonishing, that survival sometimes hinges not on strength, or weapons, or shelter, but on the delicate, imperfect wiring of instinct itself. And maybe that's the real lesson hidden inside every one of these tales. Nature was never guaranteed to be gentle. But every so often, in the space between predator and prey, something unexpected slips through. Not mercy, not magic, just the strange, beautiful uncertainty of instinct meeting innocence. And in that uncertainty, a child survives, and a legend is born.